Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. For today's video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at one of the rarest regular production vehicles out there, the 2011 Saab 94X. And if you're not that familiar with the brand, this is actually the last new vehicle that Saab had come out with before shutting everything down. They are rarer than hen's teeth, especially this particular example, which is a top-of-the-line 94X Aero. My goal with this video is to teach you everything you ever wanted to know about it. A special thanks to my friends at Cosmo Motors of Hickory, North Carolina for providing this opportunity today. For more information about the dealership, including contact info and current inventory, please feel free to check out their website provided in the description box below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start her up and let her run. Like all Saabs, the ignition is in the center console, but it's actually a push button instead of a traditional key. So all you have to do is keep the fob within the interior, put your foot on the brake, and hold down the button to go. Some of you might remember when Saab introduced the 97X in the mid-2000s. It was essentially a badge-engineered trailblazer, built along similar principles as the Oldsmobile Bravada, Isuzu Ascender, Buick Rainier, and GMC Envoy. There were a lot of SUVs built on the shared GMT 360 platform, but each had unique styling with respect to the brand. Despite being the first Saab SUV, the only thing that truly distinguished it from everything else was that it retained the signature console ignition switch. On top of that, you could get the 6-liter V8 from the Trailblazer SS if you opted for the Aero model. That's pretty cool. I hope to dive into the 97X more in depth in a future review, but it's certainly pertinent to bring up when you start talking about the 94X, as the two couldn't be more different from one another. Even though it lived a very short life, I believe the 94X had a lot of potential. With the CUV-SUV explosion over the last 5+ years, it makes you wonder whether this could have been a major turning point for Saab if the hourglass hadn't run out. Even though the 94X was designed during GM ownership, Saab had noticeably more control over the final outcome. The end result was a CUV that was pretty special. It fit the image of the brand more successfully than the 97X could have ever hoped for. From the outside, the 94X featured an all-new design language that was highly unique amongst its competitors. You wouldn't know it from a quick glance, but it actually shared a platform with the second-generation Cadillac SRX. I found the styling to be quite tasteful. It looks fancy but also kind of sporty. It's every bit a Saab with plenty of quirks thrown in. The blue tinted lights and side markers are especially cool. Out back, there's an LED light bar that connects the tail lamps just like the 2010 and 2011 95s. The 94X was available in 3 trim levels. The base 3.0i started at $34,205, while the mid-range 3.0i Premium started at $38,075, unless you opted for all-wheel drive, which required an additional $2,495. The Aero continued to represent Saab's top-line trim with a starting price of $48,835. Comparatively speaking, the Saab was a tad cheaper than the Cadillac. Again, production of the 94X was short-lived. The vast majority sold were the 3.0i models, making the Aero a unicorn in the automotive world. The 94X was available with either 18 or 20-inch wheels, both of which were 8 inches wide. The 20s were exclusive to the Aero and featured a unique 9-spoke design, similar to what was used on the 95 Aero. Finished in bright silver, they're wrapped in 235/55 all-season tires that could hold around 0.82 g of lateral acceleration. All of the chassis components were shared with the SRX. Beginning with the brakes, there's 4-wheel internally ventilated discs. The fronts measure 13.6 by 1.2 inches, while the rears measure 12.4 by 0.9 inches. They're clamped down by twin piston and single piston calipers respectively. With this setup, the 94X could stop from 60 miles an hour in about 128 feet. Analog brakes and stability control were standard. The rack and pinion steering was hydraulic power assisted and featured an overall ratio of 16.5 to 1. The Aero benefited from variable effort steering that could be stiffened or relaxed on demand, but more on that later. It also enabled the 94X to feel more precise at higher speeds, especially on the highway, and take less effort to maneuver at lower speeds. The steering takes 2.8 turns to lock. It felt surprisingly lively for what it was, very quick to respond and almost sporty in nature. The turning circle spans 40.3 feet. The 94X rode on a fully independent suspension that consisted of McPherson struts and lower A-arms in front and a linked H-arm in the rear. There's hollow stabilizer bars front and rear, coil springs at each corner, and the option of adaptive shock absorbers. Compared to the SRX, ride quality is firmer, again giving off a sportier feel. On rougher roads, there's more road noise than I would have initially expected from a luxury crossover, and sometimes the ride can be too firm depending on whether you have the dampers set to sport mode. However, the 94X is generally quiet, compliant, and comfortable. I appreciate how this doesn't isolate you from your surroundings as much as some of its competitors at the time. Depending on how you look at it, its faults could even be thought of as strengths. The 94X was offered with two engines. A 3-liter naturally aspirated V6, which developed 265 horsepower and 223 pound-feet of torque, came standard. On the other hand, the Aero came with an exclusive 2.8-liter turbocharged and intercooled V6. Developing 300 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 295 pound-feet of torque between 2,000 and 5,000 RPM, it could hit 60 miles an hour in about 8.3 seconds and reach a top speed of 143 miles per hour. Like the SRX, the 94X was a pretty hefty vehicle. Curb weight for an Aero ranged between 4,425 and 4,650 pounds. That being said, your senses aren't likely going to be lit afire by raw performance. It's certainly better than adequate and packs enough of a punch for easy passing and spirited driving. Mechanically, the 94X was identical to the SRX. Power was harnessed by an electronically controlled 6-speed automatic transmission with adaptive shifting logic. The latter had the ability to adapt to your driving behavior and to vary in road conditions. With the base engine, gears could be manually selected by the console shifter. The Aero had paddle shifters on the back of the steering wheel. While not as responsive as a lot of today's setups, it's still a pretty sweet thing if you ask me. Plus, this was exclusive to Saab. No SRX ever came with paddle shifters. Of course, you also had the option of either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, unless you went for the Aero where all-wheel drive was standard. On top of that, an electronically controlled limited slip differential was standard, which could transfer up to 50% of drive torque between the rear wheels to whichever had more grip. Collectively, this gave the 94X decent handling for its size and good traction during inclement weather. Further fine-tuning the drive was the Saab DriveSense system. In addition to the default intelligence setting, you could select between comfort and sport settings. For example, in sport, the steering gets heavier, the throttle and shift mapping becomes more aggressive, and the shocks firm up. There's even an eco mode that optimizes throttle and transmission behavior to prioritize fuel economy, but that's activated by a separate button. Speaking of, fuel economy estimates range between 16 miles per gallon in the city and 22 miles per gallon on the highway. I experienced an average of 18 miles per gallon in mixed driving. Premium fuel is required with a total capacity of 21.1 gallons. Despite all of its similarities to the SRX, the design of the interior truly embodied all of Saab's core qualities. It was unique, exciting, and offered everything you'd expect from a luxury crossover at the time. Look deep enough and you'll also find subtle references to the brand's aviation heritage and even some neat quirks, such as the mesh-style air vents and joystick adjusters. I especially like how the center console, center stack, and main instrument display encircles the driver. The Aero distinguished itself with a flat-bottom steering wheel, perforated leather seating surfaces, carbon fiber effect trim, contrast stitching, and up-level ambient lighting. The 94X is quiet out on the road and offers tremendous visibility with minimal blind spots. Build quality is comparable to an SRX. It feels solid and well put together. However, like many vehicles developed under GM's umbrella in the 2000s, the finish on the radio dials and other controls isn't very durable. The 94X offers a great driving position. It's flexible for a wide variety of body types, more so than many of its competitors at the time. 10-way power adjusting front seats including lumbar came standard on the Aero, while on the firm side they offer good overall support. The driver's seat features a manual thigh extender and 2 memory presets. The headrest, seat belts, and steering column are all adjustable. On top of that, electrically adjustable pedals are offered as an option. One of my favorite Saab features is the night panel, which allows the driver to minimize distraction during night driving by switching off all of the main instrument and infotainment illumination except for the speedometer. Also note, within the driver's information system, instead of a digital speed readout, there's an aircraft-inspired indicator. As far as main cabin storage, in addition to double-decked compartments on the doors, there's a generous 2-tier center console that houses a 12-volt power outlet as well as USB and auxiliary connectors. The cup holders are pretty cool too. They can be opened up to accommodate deeper bottles at the touch of a button. The front glove box is lockable and is also a 2-tier design. It's even cooled so you can put items in there and keep them chilled on a hot day. A 10-speaker Bose surround sound system was standard on the Aero, along with an 8-inch touchscreen hard disk-based navigation system. In addition to Bluetooth hands-free telephone and satellite radio, there's 10 gigabytes of storage built in so you can store your favorite music files, sort of like a built-in iPod. Even though this infotainment system is a bit older, it still works very well. It's not overcomplicated, making it a lot easier to use than many of the systems out nowadays. Climate's controlled by an automatic tri-zone system that allows independent temperature adjustment for the driver, passenger, and rear passengers. Heated and cooled front seats were standard on the Premium and Aero. Safety features included dual front airbags, front side airbags, and side curtain airbags for the front and rear. The 9.4X is a pretty spacious interior that can comfortably accommodate 4 people. You can squeeze a 5th person in the middle of the back seat, but they're going to have a time with leg space because of the protruding center console. I'm 5'10" and still had plenty of room left over. You can also recline the back seat for greater comfort on longer trips. People sitting in the back are treated to a lot of features. In addition to a rear seat entertainment system with dual 8-inch screens, there's independent audio and climate controls, a power outlet, and heated outboard seats. Like the front, there's ample storage space, from the door panels to the seat backs, console, and even a full armrest. Plus, you gotta love the open experience provided by the full panoramic glass roof. Now let's go ahead and see how she sounds. For added convenience, the 9.4X was offered with a powered liftgate. Not only that, but one that could be programmed to open at a lower position if there was an issue with overhead clearance. Total cargo space with everything in place is a generous 29.2 cubic feet. The rear seats are split 60-40 and can be easily folded to create a completely flat loading space and increase the total cargo space to 61.2 cubic feet. The front section of the trunk floor is hinged. Grab the aircraft-shaped handle and you'll find a nice bit of underfloor storage. Further back is a separate compartment that contains a tire inflation kit. The U-shaped track and telescopic cargo dividing rail were optional features. Once you lock the dividing rail in place, you can move it however you see fit to keep items secure, allowing you to tailor floor space to accommodate different sized items. There's extra storage cubbies across the sides, a power outlet, illumination, cargo tie-downs, and a privacy cover. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the in-depth look at the 2011 Saab 94X. Be sure to stay tuned next time, leave a like and subscribe today. There's always a lot more where that came from. Take care everyone.